Thank you all for being here today. My name is Ryan Batchelor. I'm one of the health science advisors here at our health science campus. So the way advising works here, we all kind of interchangeably advise for all of the different health science majors, but radiography is my baby, so that's the program that I oversee admissions for and do the ranking for. So I'm the one that gets you into the program, all right? So you guys are here because you're interested in radiography. You're here to learn specifically a little bit more about the admissions process, okay? So we'll briefly kind of go over a couple of things that you could encounter in this career just to make sure everyone is in the right place. But the majority of this session will be dedicated towards admissions and how to get in the program, okay? So first of all, I like to kind of weed out anyone that might be in the wrong place to begin with. Oftentimes I work with students that obviously have a passion for working in the health science field, right? But normally it's for different reasons. Maybe it's because they have a passion for wanting to help people. Maybe it's because there's good job stability. Maybe it's because there's good money involved. Maybe it's all of those things. But for my students that know that they want to work in the health science field and they don't want to be a nurse, they don't want to do things that nurses have to do, right? They want to be a little bit more hands-off. This is not the right career for you, okay? You will not be a nurse, but you could be in positions where you have to do similar things that nurses have to do. And so for that reason, one of the requirements to get into this program will be completing a CNA course, a nurse aid course, okay? I always use myself as an example in these sessions to kind of give you an idea of a different situation you could find yourself in as a radiographer that's not what you would think of when you think of the radiographer that goes into the room, clicks the button to take your x-ray, and then comes and takes you right back to the doctor pretty quickly. Years and years ago, I was in a really bad head-on car accident, and I woke up, began regaining consciousness here next door in the trauma center at Wake Med. And as I opened my eyes and began to regain that consciousness, I began to freak out really bad instantly because I realized that my daughter was with me before I was unconscious, and now she was no longer there. And I'm on a backboard with my clothes cut off of me, and I have no idea where I am, how I got there. I'm literally freaking out, okay? Well, I grew up in Apex, which is a good little distance away from Wake Med here. So when my family received the call that I had been in an accident, they actually went to the wrong hospital because there's hospitals much closer to where I was in the accident, but they don't have trauma centers there, okay? So in that moment, when I began to regain that consciousness, there was no familiar face with me in that room. There was no doctor, there was no nurse, no family friend, no one that I knew, okay? It just so happened that there was a radiographer in the room for me. It was a young lady that was prepping me for CT scan to check my head for head injuries, okay? So at that moment, her role became far beyond the scope of simply taking an x-ray image. At that moment, her role became bedside manner, kneel down, hold my hand, and tell me that everything was going to be okay, that I wasn't dying, my daughter wasn't deceased, she was okay, she was just in children's trauma. You know, so at that moment, her role became far beyond the scope of simply taking an x-ray. So that's one example of a situation that you could find yourself in, okay? How many of you in the audience have ever been suspected of having pneumonia? Anybody? Do you know what the first thing a doctor does if they think you have pneumonia is? Yep, chest x-ray, okay? I've had pneumonia myself. I don't know if it made you have severely violent coughing spells like it did me, but it can make you cough very violently to the point that you can vomit, not because you're sick to your stomach, but just because you're coughing so hard that anything that's in you is going to come out. So let's say you have a patient that you're doing a chest x-ray on, and that happens, and they vomit on the floor beside you. You don't get to call CNA to come clean that up for you. You're not calling housekeeping. Hey, can you come get that? That would be your job at that moment, okay, to clean that up and take care of the patient, okay? So those are just a couple of examples of different situations you could find yourself in that are beyond the scope of simply just taking an x-ray image, okay? All right, in addition, you're going to be taught how to get quality images. So you're actually going to be taught how to use the radiologic equipment, how to use the machinery. You're going to get into the physics behind the machinery and how all that works. So you will be learning that in the program as well, okay? They're going to teach you how to get those good quality images on that first try or two. Nobody wants you to have to take, 20 different pictures to get that quality image, right? All right, a couple of things that the department heads like me to go ahead and emphasize early on. Training is physically demanding, okay? When you're in the clinical portion of this program, you won't be sitting in a classroom setting like this very much. You'll be on your feet, hands-on, on your feet a lot, okay? When you're in the career, you're going to be on your feet a lot. Most of you in the room have probably had an x-ray on a certain part of your body at a certain point in your life, right? And so you remember going into the x-ray room and they're putting you in one place and then they're positioning everything around you. So obviously you need to be physically able to move that equipment around the patient and position them the way that they need to be positioned, okay? You can and will see blood and other various bodily fluids in which I have discussed. Think about a patient that has an external fracture in their leg, okay? Their femur is protruding through the skin. That's an open fracture. You're going to have to be able to stomach looking at that, you know what I mean, visually looking at that and positioning that patient to get that quality image of that injury, okay? You may be required to stick things in places you never thought you'd have to stick things before. If you'd like to Google a barium enema on your own time, you can have fun with that. That would be one example, okay? Again, these are health service jobs. You will have direct patient contact, okay? Any questions so far? All right. All right. Our program is accredited. So long story short, what this means is when you complete our program and you look to sit for the state exam, you're able to do that because our program was accredited, okay? When you are looking for a job in this field, your employer is not necessarily going to be looking to see that you have a radiography degree. They're going to be looking to see that you're listed on the appropriate registry, okay? And so because our program is accredited, it allows you to sit for the appropriate exam to get licensed. Again, your eligibility for licensure, that's what is going to get you employed in your hospitals, in your doctor's offices, in your clinics, so on and so forth. This is a little bit of information about ARRT. Don't need to read it word for word. On the next slide, I'm going to provide you with a couple of links. Either take a picture of this slide or jot down those websites. I would like you to familiarize yourself with the content on the ARRT website at some point, since that is your ultimate goal to get there. All right, so let's talk about how you get this process started. Essentially, there are two phases. You've got phase one, which makes you a pre-radiography student. Phase two makes you a radiography student in the actual program, okay? So those are two big differences, and we're going to talk about those while you're here today. All right, so your phase one. Many of you in this room have probably already completed a number of these steps, if not all of them, with the exception of today's info session, okay? Phase one consists of completing an online application on our website, which includes residency. Has anyone in the room not completed an online application in residency? Good, so everybody's got that step taken care of. Secondly, you're going to apply for FAFSA if you intend to use financial aid to pay for classes, okay? Very important you get that submitted as soon as possible. Processing for financial aid takes a little bit longer than it does for admissions, okay? You're completing your mandatory information session here today. And you're going to submit official copies to me of your high school and any colleges that you previously attended, okay? And lastly, you'll take our placement test if needed, okay? So phase one is essentially fairly simple, and like I said, many of you in this room have probably met a good number of those steps already. Do I have anyone in the audience that's a current Wake Tech student in a different major considering changing to radiography? Very good. So we know that you definitely already have the steps completed if you've already been accepted in another major. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the transcripts. Some of my classes I'm taking, obviously it won't be done until December, so sending that in December.
Yeah, you're enrolled somewhere else right now for this semester. Don't pay the money to request one to come to us before those grades are in. There's really no need.
But it won't be an issue since the deadline's in June.
Well, not necessarily. If you're intending on enrolling in spring classes here and anything you're enrolled in now meets the prerequisite for what you want to go into in the spring, what you can do is bring in an unofficial transcript to us showing that you're enrolled in that class, which will allow us to go ahead and do an override for you. And if you make a C or better in the class, then you can stay in the class that we gave you the override for spring, if that makes sense. Okay, everybody good? All right. So let's go over all of this a little bit more. When you were doing your online application, I always like to let students know what you were doing just in case you didn't know when it came to the RDS. That's a third party that was basically brought on to ensure that all North Carolina college students pay the same tuition rate at any school in which they're enrolled. Okay, so that's a statewide thing. And I don't think anyone needed assistance with the online application. I think everybody was good to go with that. If you ever do need assistance with that, we can always help up front in the admissions area. Transcripts. Definitely important that we get those here sooner rather than later. Okay. especially if you've been at another college where you think that some of the coursework you've taken there is going to come over and be equivalent and meet prerequisites here for radiography. Let's go ahead and get those transcripts sent here sooner rather than later so that we don't have any surprises once those transcripts are actually evaluated, okay? The evaluation process is not something that advisors get to do. It's a function that is done by our registrar's office. So we have the unique role of sitting down in front of you, the student, with your transcript and saying, I think you're going to be okay on this and this and this and this. I think you'll get credit for those. But remember, that is us giving you an educated guess, okay, because we're not the ones actually awarding that credit. So for that reason, I like to go ahead and get those here sooner rather than later. That way we do not have any surprises at the end of this process for you, okay? Again, transfer credit is not something that we award, so just know that that is a student-initiated process if you want to dispute the credit that you've been awarded. Once your stuff is evaluated, if you feel like you should have gotten credit for more than what you did, you would reach out to the registrar's office at that point to dispute that process. And if you need to know how to do that, need assistance in doing that, we're always here to help with that. Okay? Placement test exemptions. So anyone that has an associate's degree or higher, you're automatically exempt from the placement test. Doesn't matter what the degree was in, it doesn't matter where it's from, how long ago you earned it, it does not matter. An associate's degree or higher, you're completely exempt from the placement test. Okay? If you've completed, I'll jump there. If you graduated from high school, U.S. high school within the last 10 years, that also exempts you from the placement test. If you have a valid high school GPA within the last 10 years, you do not have the option to take the placement test. Okay? We're automatically going to admit you and place you based on that high school GPA. If you have college level English with a C or better, then you're exempt from the reading and writing portion. If you have college level math completed with a C or better that's within the last 10 years, then you're exempted from the math portion of the test. Okay? In addition to all of that information, there's a number of SAT and ACT scores that are still within that 10-year range that can exempt students from the placement test as well. Okay? Does everybody in this room feel pretty comfortable knowing kind of where they are based on placement?
Is statistics considered, does that count for the math?
Good question.
I think it's 153 and I think it said 142 or higher.
Is it from a state school?
It's from Durham Tech. I'm taking it right now.
You should be fine. Is it math 151?
I thought it was
152? Yeah, 152 is fine.
Okay.
That's our stats. We used to have one that's 151. That's why I asked. I didn't know if they were still teaching the old one.
I think it's 152.
You should be fine.
Okay.
Absolutely fine. You're good. Absolutely. Very good questions. Everybody else good? All right. All right, so phase one is essentially complete when those items are done. That's when I can admit you pre-radiography. That's when you can come in my office one-on-one and be advised for radiography, okay? So online application, you've submitted your transcripts, you've done your info session, and taken the placement test if necessary. Make sense? All right. So let's talk about what you can do as a pre-radiography student. What does that mean? That means you're going to start making yourself competitive, okay? That means you're going to start taking any general education, any pre-curriculum classes that you need, okay? No student will ever touch a radiography course, a RAD course, until you're actually in the program. Nobody, okay? You've got to earn enough points to be competitive to get in. All right. If it's your first time attending college, you've never attended college anywhere before, please know that the minute that myself or anyone gets you admitted to this college, you're automatically going to have a hold placed on your account that requires you to do new student orientation. You will not be able to register until that's done. So if you know you're coming in as a brand new student, just kind of be aware that that's going to be a requirement. Get admitted sooner rather than later so that you can get that requirement taken care of. That way you're not having to register late. Okay? If you ever plan on taking an online course, there is an online assessment located in your Blackboard account. Every single student at Wake Tech has that link in their Blackboard account. I encourage you to work on that sooner rather than later as well if you think you'll ever want or need to take an online class. Okay? It's there for a reason. If you struggle significantly with the online assessment, it is my advice not to do an online class. That's kind of your sign that that's probably not the right learning environment for you. But like I said, in order to register for an online class, that assessment must be taken and passed. Okay? When your assigned registration date begins, that's when you can begin registering for the courses for the next semester. Okay? And again, I said it before, You cannot register to take rad courses until you're actually accepted into the program. It is a competitive admissions process, not a waitlisted process, okay? And we typically accept about 20 students per semester. That number will fluctuate from semester to semester depending on a number of things, depending on our retention rate in the program, depending on the number of clinical sites that our department was able to secure for that particular semester. So like I said, that number can and will fluctuate. I've admitted as many as 23 in a semester before. This semester I was only able to admit 17, okay? So that number will fluctuate just a tad. Registering for classes. I cannot stress enough that you should not wait until the very end of our registration cycle to register. Cannot stress that enough. We typically serve about 75,000 students a year here, so our classes do fill up very quickly. You want to pay attention to when you are eligible to register. It's a tiered registration system, so all of our current students that already have Wake Tech credits accumulated, they get to register before new students coming in. New students, registration opens up for you pretty much on one day. So it's very important to take advantage of your assigned time and get in there and get your classes before they fill up. I encourage you to come in and meet with me every semester midway. So if you were in classes this fall, I would say be coming in sometime around October, something like that, so that I can talk to you about how your classes are going now and help you pick classes for the spring. When you come into my office, if you come into my office for one-on-one advising, remember you can see anybody here, but if you come into my office, I want to forewarn each of you that I'm a very intrusive advisor. I'm a very nosy advisor. I get in your business. It's not because I want to offend you. It's because I was a non-traditional student myself, and I firmly believe that it is the non-academic factors in your life that will get in the way of your success here, far more than the actual academics, the rigor of the academics and the classes that you're in. So for that reason, I like to talk to you about your life and get to know you just a little bit. Obviously, I can't get to know each one of you as much as I would like to, but I will be asking you things like, are you working? Are you not working? Are you supporting yourself or not supporting yourself? Are you married? Are you not married? Do you have kids? Do you not have kids? If you do have kids, how old are they? All kinds of questions, okay? And that's just so that I can help come up with the best plan for you for the next semester, okay? Course sequence will also play a role into which courses I recommend, so it's kind of going to be a blend of you, your life, what you have going on, and then where you are academically. That's kind of what will help me recommend that schedule for you. But do know that there are prerequisites to some of the courses that you're going to need to take. We've got remedial math and remedial English as prerequisites to chemistry if you need to take the chemistry. The chemistry is prerequisites to the biology that you need to take. You've got remedial English as prerequisites to humanities and English and courses of that sort. So there's definitely prerequisites to some of the courses that you need to take. And I just need to kind of see where you fall on that spectrum in order to recommend your set of classes. Okay? All right, let's get into the fun stuff. Let's talk about points and how you actually get into this program. Okay? So again, this is a limited enrollment program. There is no wait list. There is no wait list. Okay, that means that when you apply to this program, if you don't get in, you're not automatically rolled over to the next list for the next semester with priority. Okay, you reapply again. This is probably one of the most important statements that I'll make in this entire presentation. Entry into the radiography classes is never guaranteed. This is not a matter of completion. So this is a little bit different than a student that's been pursuing associate in art or business administration or early childhood education, a non-competitive degree, right? Where you're literally checking the classes off as you go along, right? You've passed it C or better, let's go on to the next and let's get this show on the road, right? That's not the way this works, okay? You do not want to simply just make C's or better in your classes, okay? Your classes are the only thing that are going to determine whether or not you get into this program, okay? So I just need everyone to understand you could literally take every single gen ed prerequisite class that there is. That does not mean that you're going to get in the program. Okay? All right. Let's see here. Let's talk a little bit about this curriculum. And I'm going to steal yours for just 1 second. I want everyone to pull out the purple leaflet that's in your folder. And you're going to turn back to the second from the last page. And so what you should be looking at is the program planning guide. It looks like this. And any one of you, just a volunteer, Just shout it out. What is one of the biggest differences that you see in how the courses are laid out on the sheet in front of you as opposed to how they are on the screen up here? Anybody?
You have to take those courses before you take those courses.
Ding, 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 we have a winner. All right, so yes, the gen eds up here on this screen have been pulled from the curriculum, right? There's a reason for that. The piece of paper in front of you, there's no mistake. That is the actual program planning guide for the radiography program. What that sheet of paper tells you is those are the classes you will take, those are the number of credits that you will earn in order to earn that degree, okay? But that's not how the program is administered. You will have taken all of your gen ed classes before you ever get into the radiography program, because you're going to need all those classes to have enough points to be competitive, number one. Number two, there's a much bigger layer to this, okay? So let's kind of delve into this. When you're over here on this side of the house and you're taking your gen ed classes, your English, your math, your bio, and so on, you have all the flexibility you need, okay? Oftentimes, you're picking these classes in a manner that go with your work schedule, don't conflict with your kids' schedule, you're able to get out of class in time to go pick your children up, I mean, that sort of thing, right? You're picking the day and time you're coming to class, you're picking where you're going to class, you're picking who your teacher is, you're picking your schedule, okay? When you get to this side of the house, there's no more picking your schedule. You have zero flexibility. Hear me clearly. Zero flexibility in your schedule. Now, how the radiography courses are laid out on that sheet, that's exactly how they'll be administered. So it's 2 years once you get in the program. There's no way to speed that up. There's no way to slow it down. Okay? So in that first semester of your rad, you couldn't come in and say, oh, well, rad 110 and 111, they work with my schedule. Those are good, but the 151, that conflicts. I'm not going to be able to get my kids from school in time, so I'm going to have to do that one another semester. It doesn't work that way, guys. Okay? It's a set prescribed schedule. I tell students the best way you can prepare for this is to mentally block out Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 for the program. You will not be able to work a full-time Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 job and do the program. It's actually impossible. Okay? It's not going to happen. Are you essentially going to be here Monday through Friday from 8 to 5? No, you're not. No, you're not. But here's the deal. You're not going to know your specific clinical schedule and your specific rotation until you get all the way to being accepted in the program, okay? So that's a ways out. Hard to plan for that. You really will be here 3 to 4 of those days almost full time. None of the days, I don't think any one of the days you're literally here from 8 to 5, but you're here for a lengthy time during 3 to 4 of those days. One of them, I can't remember if you have a full day off or it's just a very short meeting period that day. So it's possible that you can squeeze some working hours in once you get your clinical schedule if you have flexibility with your employer. But I just need everyone to wrap their heads around and know that Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 is not going to work, okay? You will literally be told when and where you will be, and if that doesn't work for you, then you're not going to be able to do the program. Does that make sense to everybody? Second layer to that is you would never, ever in a million years go ask any student in the radiography program. You would never want to be juggling the rigor of writing an English paper or keeping up with a bio class or a math class on top of the clinical schedule. The clinical schedule will keep you plenty busy all by itself. Okay? So all that being said, my best advice to you guys, I cannot stress it enough, is for these courses over here on the left-hand side, take them in an order, number one, that is realistic for you and what you have going on in your life so that you're pulling grades high enough to be a competitive student. And don't rush through this side so much that you get to this side and you're just simply not ready for the clinical schedule. Remember all that and take all of that into consideration, okay? Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
If you have the college courses, is there a time limit?
Yes. So biology course, very important that that one remains within 5 years of your first rad course. Very important. Math is a 10-year window, okay? So math is a little bit longer than bio, but the bio is 5, math is 10.
Can be longer.
Absolutely.
And then
There's
what
no
about
expiration on English, psych, humanities.
chemistry? At one point, you were accepting high school chemistry no matter how old it was.
We still do.
Okay.
So very good question.
Okay.
Now that I want people using their common sense with as well.
Sure.
I have had someone in the audience before that was very shocked and she was like, oh my gosh, that chemistry, I aced it, but that was from like 20 years ago. I don't know if I want to use that. If you're in that situation, you can still take chemistry even if we award you credit for it. You need to know, you know what I mean, what your foundation in that course is before you get into the A&P. Okay? Very, very, very good question. Any other questions or concerns? Everything resonating and making sense? All right, very good. Let's talk a little bit more about your gen ed courses, and I will try to stay off my soapbox. Your English 111, your English 112, your Psych 150. There's really virtually no, I won't say no substitutions. Your English 111, we have to have English 111 or whatever is equivalent to that. Psychology 150, same thing. Either Psych 150 here or whatever is equivalent to general psychology, intro to psych. So social psych, abnormal psych, developmental psych, if you've taken any of those, they will not meet that requirement, okay? Math 143 or higher. Math 143 or higher. So any Math 143 or higher, okay? Humanities. This is the one course out of all the courses that you get to take that you do have a good amount of flexibility in, okay? And since research has proven that the more into a subject matter you are, the more engaged you are, the more likely you are to be successful, let's pick a humanities that you actually want to take, and that way you can go for an A for me, okay? Humanities 115 is the course that's listed in your curriculum. That is critical thinking. Some of my students love that course, and they ace it, okay? Hear me clearly. Some of my students would rather jump out a glass window head first than take a critical thinking class. If that is you, you do not have to take Humanities 115, okay? It can be any art, any drama, any music, any religion, any philosophy. Hands down, the best humanities course that I have ever taken in any of my college coursework, and one of the easiest A's I ever achieved in my life was Religion 110, REL 110. It was one of the best classes I've ever taken, one of the most enjoyable, one of the most eye-opening. And again, I pulled an A in that class in a semester of, I think, 19 credit hours, and I was working full-time with 2 very young children. So it can be done, okay? Bio 163. Please do not sleep on your bio. Please do not sleep on this class. Just because you aced biology in high school or you've aced Bio 110 or Bio 111, this is a totally different ballgame. Do I have anyone in the audience that has attempted or taken Bio 163 or Bio 168, 169? Would either one of you like to speak to your experience? Well, actually, let me make a statement first, and then we'll see if you'd like to speak to it. It is recommended when you take your bio to be prepared for it to be like a part-time job in itself, the one class. Most of my students that are successful in that class, and when I say successful, I mean an A or a B, okay? Most of those students are spending a minimum of 20 hours per week in that class outside of your scheduled class time in order to keep up. And so I don't want to intimidate anyone or scare anyone, okay? But it's my job to keep it real with you and let you know what you're getting yourself into. It's not the rigor of the course, guys, that is so bad. It's the amount of information that you are learning, okay? The amount of memorization, the amount of terms that you need to be able to spell correctly on a test, okay? That's what gets you. So you do not want to be in this course with a full load. You don't want to be in this course with 2 or 3 other classes. In my opinion, if it were me taking the class, I would take the class by itself. If I were using financial aid and that wasn't an option and I needed a few more credit hours because that one by itself wasn't enough, I would come talk to my advisor and have her recommend a non-points class that can go with it so that you're only stressing about the grade in this class altogether anyway. Just a suggestion. Would either one of you like to second anything that I just said?
I agree that it's very time intensive, but I took it in summer school, so if there's a way that you don't have to take it in summer school, I would advise that. We had tests every other week. It's a lot of information.
I never advise
but it's easy to pick up. I mean, it's easy information. It's just a lot in a small period of time.
No, you summed it up perfectly. I took it by itself.
Okay.
And it was the most work I had to do in the class.
Okay. Just saying, I just like that out there. That way you guys have the information, okay? Any question about any of these gen ed classes?
Intro to bio, or take bio 163.
Great question. You don't have to. High school chemistry is typically the way that most students meet the prerequisite for that class. How many of you took high school chemistry in high school, made a C or better? So every single one of you that's raised your hand, you actually get credit for Chem 090 as soon as we receive your high school transcript. You don't even have to tell us that you need it. You don't have to tell us that you want it. We just automatically put it in the system. So if that was you and you had it, you're good to go. If not, I'm going to go over in just a few minutes some of the prerequisite options for that class. But yeah, you could do Bio 110 or 111 to meet the prerequisite. Most students just don't. All right, so let's talk about applying to the clinical portion and kind of start getting some of this stuff out of the way. When you are ready to apply as a competitive student, you will have taken all of your gen ed classes. That's how you will have demonstrated your proficiency, okay? Because you will have taken all your classes. You will be a certified nurse aide listed as an active person on that registry. You will complete a TEAS exam. All right, and then you're going to submit a clinical application. So, that chemistry that I was speaking about, like I said, it looks like most of you in the room have met it just by taking the high school chemistry. If you ever want to brush up, kind of what I was speaking about before, where say you took it, you aced it, but it was a long, long time ago, and you just don't feel that you have that foundation, do know that Chem MOOC is always a way that you can either brush up on your skills, or you can even get credit for Chem 090 without paying for or taking the class. If you just search for this acronym on our website, it will bring up the MOOC catalog. The MOOC courses, they're basically online, self-paced, self-taught. So do be clear, there's no instructor. No one is teaching you, but you're given the information in modules and you are allowed to basically teach it to yourself at a self-paced rate. When you feel that you've mastered the material, you can reach out to the department head, take the challenge exam, and bam, you've got credit for Chem 090 without ever paying for taking a single class. It's just an online course that you did yourself, okay? So that's one way that you can fulfill the requirement for the chemistry. Another way to fulfill it is just to take our Chemistry 090, okay? Which is just a remedial chemistry course that we offer that's equivalent to high school chemistry, okay? So there's a number of different options that you can do to complete the chemistry proficiency, but you definitely want to have it before you get into the bio, okay? Your Nurse Aid 1 certification. You will take a state-approved nurse aid course, whether it's through us or someone else, but you will take one. I encourage all of you to begin looking into what those schedules look like sooner rather than later, because the way the nurse aid schedules are laid out, they're a lot harder to fit in with work schedules and that type of thing than, say, a Psych 150 curriculum course is. So just start looking into that so that you can make sure you've planned ahead enough in order to get enrolled in one of those courses. Do know that my best advice with this CNA is make sure that the end date on your CNA course is a minimum of 1 month prior to the deadline you're trying to meet. I have seen this mess students up a number of times when ranking. So what I mean by that, if you're going to be meeting my January 31st deadline, I need your nurse aid course to have ended a minimum of the end of December or before. If you're meeting the end of July deadline, July 31st, I need your nurse aid course to have ended a minimum of the end of June. Why do I say that? Because many students are not aware that there is a 2-week waiting period in which you must wait from the day that that nurse aid course ends before you can sign up for that state exam. The state exam is what gets you on the registry. So the end date of the course is irrelevant in way of making you an active person on the registry. It's the day of your state exam. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? So basically just don't save that to be one of the very last things that you do before meeting a deadline unless you're sure that you're going to have time to get in for that exam. Okay? TEAS. This is something that you should not take prematurely, or at least we recommend that you don't take it prematurely. It's recommended that you don't sit for TEAS until you've taken all your gen ed classes, specifically that bio. That one's very important. There is a handout in your folder for TEAS, answers some of the frequently asked questions, gives you some content information, kind of how that exam is weighted and what that looks like. It costs $77 to register for TEAS, and that is a non-refundable, non-transferable fee. So you definitely want to be prepared when you're registering for that test, unless you just want to give someone the money if you don't show up to take it. All right. Right now, TEAS is critically important to you getting into the program. because it's all or nothing right now. And when I say right now, I'm giving you all the information as to how we are currently ranking. When I get done going through all of this, I get to give you another handout that tells you how we're going to begin ranking as of July next year, because it will change. As of right now, T's is all or nothing. You score a 62% or lower, you get nothing. 63% or higher, you get 25 points added to your ranking. Okay? So that's why right now T's is so critically important to you getting into the program. All right, let's talk about earning points. Typically, you're earning 4 points for an A, 3 points for a B, 2 points for a C. The number is obviously multiplied by the number of credit hours, and right now your bio points are doubled, okay, which makes bio a very, very important class. You can retake classes for a higher grade, okay, so that's okay. But remember back to the beginning of this presentation, it's my job, what I like to do is I like to advise you in a way where you're not having to come back and retake classes. Now, I know life happens. Sometimes unavoidable things happen and it'll get in the way of your success and you'll just have to repeat the class. But it's my goal that you're not overwhelming yourself right off the bat so that you can make good grades in these classes and not have to find yourself retaking them over and over and over again, okay? Right now, this is what our points chart looks like, okay? So you can see those are the number of points that you're earning for the grades in those specific classes. You can see now why bio is very, very important, right? You're getting 40 points just from that one class if you've got an A in that class. So I've yet to have been able to admit anyone in the program yet that had a C in that class because just that point differential, they're ranked so much lower than other students on the list. Okay? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go carefully the new way it's changing too, because in my opinion, I don't think that either way is going to be more or less competitive. It's just different sets of numbers. The courses are equally still going to be just as important. All right, let me pass around some ranking scenarios for you guys to take a look at while I keep talking. When I say ranking, you know, you've heard me say ranking a few times. So basically, when you meet that deadline and you're applying to get into radiography, I'm taking every single applicant that applied and I'm ranking you. What does that mean? I'm going down and I'm indicating, do you have your nurse aid? What is your T's score? And I'm marking the grades that you have in each one of your courses to award you the highest amount of points possible, okay? If you retake a class, if you get a C in your bio the first time, you retake and get an A, you don't have to contact me and say, hey, Ms. Ryan, make sure you use that A, not the C. I'm automatically going to use the higher grade to rank you, okay? So just take a look at some of the ranking sheets as they go around. Obviously, scenario 1 and 2, these were top candidates for this particular semester. They were straight A candidates and got in the program. Scenario 3, take a close look at this one. This student looks fairly competitive on paper, but this student did not get in this semester. They weren't even high enough to get an alternate that semester. The A's and B's just kind of weren't in the right places, okay? Last scenario, this one is important. This is what it looks like when you apply before you've taken all the classes. This is what it looks like when you apply when you're not competitive. So this student applied with a total of 33 points, okay? So obviously they did not get in either. So you can just pass those around, and obviously that'll give you a better idea of what ranking looks like. Again, I said that you can retake classes. That's absolutely fine for you to do so. Our system, when you're registering, will allow you to register for the same class twice on your own, okay? If you need a third attempt or beyond, it's not that you're not allowed to do that. You just need to get special departmental permission in order to do so, okay? So just know that if it's your third attempt or higher on a class, you will need to get specific permission in order to do that, okay? All right, our clinical application deadlines. For the fall semester, it's going to be July 31st. Did I say that backwards? January 31st for fall. So January of the same year for the fall semester. So for students that began this fall, they applied and had everything turned in by January of this year, okay? July of this year is the deadline for spring of the following year, okay? Does that make sense to everybody as to when the deadlines fall? All right. All right, so let's recap phase 2. You are ready to submit your clinical application to me once you've taken all your classes, I have all of your transcripts, you've done your mandatory information session, you have taken your T's and earned your T's points, you're certified nurse aide. That is when you're ready to submit your clinical application, okay? not truly a day before. Does everybody kind of have a good idea of what it's going to take to make you a competitive student? Yes? Okay. Anything I can clarify? All right.
So you want high school and our college
Yes.
transcripts? Okay.
Absolutely. High school and college. Absolutely. All right, when you get to the clinical portion of this program, do know that you will be required to be insured, okay? Lots of liability in your clinical setting, so very important that you're insured. If you have your own insurance, you're good to go, okay? But if you come into the clinical portion uninsured, just know that you're going to need to purchase what's called community college student insurance, okay? All right, some more general information. Fall semester is always going to begin in August. Spring is always going to begin in January. I cannot stress enough that when you're looking at the time of scheduling your classes, look at everything. Look at the big picture that includes your schedule, significant other schedule, kids' schedule, work schedule, school schedule, everything, okay, so that we're not overwhelming ourselves. Students must abide by dress codes when you're at the clinical sites. So when you're in the program here in pre-rad, we do not have any policies regarding tattoos, piercings, anything of that nature, but do know that when you get to the clinical portion, they very well may have those policies in place, okay? If accepted into the radiography program, it's very important that you're maintaining C's or better in every single rad course. Anything less than a C in a single one of those courses gets you removed from the program by the department, and you will work out your plan of reentry with the department, okay? So that's not us being mean, that's just us taking pride in producing quality students, okay? All right. Please also be aware that a criminal background check and a drug screening will be required when you apply for the clinical portion of the program, okay? I encourage any student that has more than pretty much a speeding ticket on their background to reach out to our clinical compliance coordinator just to get an idea of whether or not that specific charge is going to be a hindrance to you later when you're trying to get into this program, okay? Any questions? All right, so the people that should see an advisor today, obviously those that know you've already met all the steps and you just need to change your major, those of you should sign in to see an advisor today so we can go ahead and get that major changed for you. If you're almost ready but you're lacking transcripts or something that's going to help us get you admitted or answer your questions as to where you are in the process, it's my advice to get those here before you come and sit down with one of us, but that's just a suggestion. I don't want anyone having to wait for a lengthy amount of time to finally get in the office and then be turned away because we don't have what we need to advise you, okay? We can check to see if transcripts have been received up at the front desk or in an advisor's office. So if you've requested transcripts to be sent here and you're not sure if we've received them yet or not, we can check that for you while you're here today. Again, I cannot stress it enough. I encourage you, to meet with me as frequently as you feel you need to stay on track so that I can be keeping you competitive. Let me go ahead and if you'll take one and pass these around, you'll have my business card so that you have my contact information. Email is absolutely the best way to get a hold of me. Especially to get the quickest response. And let's go ahead and get this out of the way as well. So again, all of the information that's in your packet, all the information that I have verbally delivered to you, that pertains to how we are ranking now. As of July next year, we're changing to a whole new ranking system, okay? Let me grab one of those. So I'm just going to grab one so I can reference it. Those are good through this January cycle coming up. That is the last cycle that I will.
So we can apply January 30th. It would still be under this?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep, and so until January passes, even down to my last session in December, I still have to give this information because technically that's what we're still doing right now. Okay. But yeah, as of July next year, so July 31st, 2020, this would be the deadline for folks trying to get in the following spring. Okay, 2021. All right, let's take a good look at this because there's some very, very extremely notable changes on here. First of all, take a look at the top. Take a look at your points on the new sheet. So the new points, they're going to be the same for all of the courses instead of the bio being weighted differently. They're going to be 12 points across the board for an A, 10 points across the board for a B, and 8 points across the board for a C. Is this going to make bio any less important? No, it's not. Absolutely not. Okay? Now, take a look at your T's section. This is one of the biggest changes, period. Okay? We've been doing all or nothing for a 63% or higher composite, right? 25 points. Take a look at this new tiered system. Maximum you can earn is 20 points. What I don't want anyone making the mistake of doing is slacking off in your classes and saying, oh, well, these points aren't really that important anymore. I'll just bank on getting T's points. You don't want to do that, and let me tell you why. Let me have someone take a guess. So even though we're changing to the tiered system for the first time for radiography, nursing has been doing this exact same tiered system for years and years and years now. So I went back and looked at about 8 past ranking cycles. We're talking thousands of students. We have about 200 per cycle apply for nursing. I want someone to guess how many students out of 1,000 fall into that 91 to 100 composite range. Just take a guess. Anybody? Out of 1,000.
Out of 1,000?
Out of 1,000 students.
Probably
Maybe
like
50.
2%.
Give me a number.
Maybe
Oh.
50?
2.
50,
Go way lower.
20.
Lower.
10.
Lower.
5.
5.
Yeah.
That's
5. So let me just tell you that most students are not going to fall in that range. Okay? Let me tell you that you're going to be lucky if you fall in the 12-point range. So does that make sense? So this is exactly why I explain it this way. That way there's no surprises later. Okay? I'm not selling anyone short. You might come in and blow the T's out of the water, but I'm just giving you statistics on how many students are able to do that. Okay? So I want you still making very good grades in your classes. That way when it comes time to taking T's and you don't score 20 points, you're still going to be okay. All right? All right. Now, another significant change you'll note, that you're now going to be awarded 2 points for reapplying. That's a one-time thing, one time only. So that doesn't mean that you get to reapply 10 times and get 20 points that way. Okay? It's one time for a lifetime. Okay? And additionally, the allied health related degree. I will be referring anyone who thinks that they have what would qualify for those extra points directly to the department head to make that call. Okay? All right, so like I said, a lot of notable changes. I don't think that, either way is going to make you more or less competitive. I think the numbers are just going to change drastically and completely with the scale changing. But, definitely take your classes seriously and don't bank on making a tremendous amount of points from the TEAS test moving forward. Okay? Any questions or concerns about the new way? Well, y'all have been a wonderful audience. You seem to just grasp everything. Everybody's awake. That's a good thing. All right. In your folders, there is what's called a Certificate of Understanding. You're going to want to pull that out and fill that out completely for me. That is how you get credit for being here today. Once you've completed that, you can tear the copies apart, keep the yellow copy for your records, and you can turn the white copy upside down on your desk for me. And so once those are completed, you are free to go. I do thank you for being here today. If you do want to see myself or one of the other advisors, you'll sign in up front in the admissions area. If you know that you're waiting on a transcript or something like that, feel free to shoot me an email once we have it and set up an appointment with me. If you have a rigorous work schedule, feel free to shoot me an email and set up an appointment that way. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep, as soon as you've filled out your sheet, I've gotten what I need from you. You're very welcome.